Hi, Tom Miller. We're with State Representative Patrick Windhorst, 117th District. Did I tell you it was really good to see you again?
It's great to see you, Tom. Happy New Year.
It's a little different than we used to do them on the radio.
That's right.
All by phone, so It's kind of nice to see you.
It's good to see you face to face.
So now when I ask a question, you go, I'll know.
People know how I feel about it, right?
Patrick, our first state representative interview in this series, so, really honored to have him for the 117th District, but also because he's House Floor Leader for the Republicans. So will you be House Floor Leader 2026?
Yes, yeah.
They have to vote on that or anything?
No, it's basically it's a 2-year appointment from the leader. I serve at the discretion of the House Republican leader. And
Tony McCombie?
Tony McCombie, yeah. And looks like that will continue this year.
So I don't normally do something shocking to begin with, but I don't feel like I got any choice because I wrote down WTF in my notes. Taxing tips in Illinois?
Yes.
The president says we're doing away with taxing tips. Everybody, some of the hardest working people you and I know, and you're right. Yeah. You know service industry in your
exactly.
district, and now we're like the least among us. No, we're going to keep taxing those tips, says J.B. Pritzker.
Well, it's a symptom of a larger problem, and the larger problem is our state government feels like it can't get enough money from the taxpayer. So any break we see that comes from the federal government, our governor and the majority in the General Assembly are trying to find ways to peel that back so that way Illinois continues to get the tax revenue.
I kind of had a different thought, not that you're not incorrect, because I think there's two things. People do things for two reasons, a good reason and the real reason. And the real reason is I hate Donald Trump.
There's that, yeah.
Right? Did he have to have that money? Are we so broke we have to tip our waiters and waitresses and then because they needed to get by and then to go after that money? And the minute I saw that, I kept thinking, is this about money or is this about Trump?
Well, a lot of the things we do in the state for the last year have been counter to what the federal government has done. In some ways, not wanting to give a victory to the president or the Republicans in the U.S. Congress. I don't want to attribute too many bad motives, but I think the governor himself in his own statements has made clear that whatever the president does, he's going to go the opposite direction.
He's going to fight him.
Yeah.
So today with Patrick Windhorst, what we're doing is we're doing a 2-section interview. One, old news, 2025 old business, and 2026 new business. So let's talk about 2025. Because if our budget was so balanced, why do we have a $200 million deficit?
Because we continue to expand spending and revenues are not keeping up with that spending. It really, we saw during the COVID period when there was federal money that was coming into the state, an opportunity. And that opportunity was if we brought our spending in line, use that additional revenue to pay off some of our pension debt or maybe give some tax relief to the taxpayer, then we would be sitting in a better position today than we were 5 years ago. But instead, when those new revenues came in, we expanded programs, expanded spending, and then when those revenues from the federal government went away, that spending
and the whole time, Patrick, they're saying, no, we're not using, no, that's not balancing our budget, no. I mean, they were adamant on this issue. The Democrats were adamant that that was not what's happening now. And now we're looking at a $200 million deficit?
Yes, and in fact, I think we're going to see it move up to being $1 billion or more in this coming year. We don't have the estimates yet. One positive has been that the revenue estimates have stayed strong. They've not dropped off, which indicates the economy is staying strong.
Gross domestic product, 4%.
Right. But we have to see as we go into the spring where those revenue estimates are with the expenditures.
Because we really went after the money this year in Illinois. I mean, I tried to, on 2025, I was thinking it was the year of taxes, the year of death by 1,000 cuts,
yes,
which we'll bring up again. I mean, out of 2025, what do you think was the biggest thing accomplished or damage done in 2025?
Well, if we look at what occurred in the veto session, which is fresh on everyone's mind because it was just a couple months ago, and talking to people on the other side of the aisle who've been there for much longer than I have, they're veterans of the General Assembly, they'd say, we've never seen a veto session like this. It's never been like this. Energy legislation that's going to increase rates. We saw a massive transit bill that's going to increase taxes in the north and take from tax dollars in the south.
We're going to spend some time on that in a
yes.
minute. You know the tax that I found interesting? I did not know this until I was doing work to talk with you today. The GILTI tax. Do you know what the GILTI tax is?
I do know what it is. Now, don't have me explain it all.
All right. I had to write it down too, my friend. Yeah. Global Intangible Low Taxed Income. It's a corporate tax. It literally in the legislation is GILTI, G-I-L-T-I. You're guilty of being greedy, and we're taking the money back. There's I have quite a few former teachers who say, that's a form of propaganda.
There is an element of that. So this is another one where we see the federal government giving with one hand and then the state taking with the other. So this ties in with the decoupling of...
I'm glad you said that, because we talked about this with the tax on tips and the up yours Trump type of mentality. And the phrase decoupling from federal tax code. So the federal government is trying to give you a break, right? Affordability is an issue. And clearly the way we're spending money in this country, we must have some to give back to the people we take it from. That's just one example.
So we had two things with the decoupling. There was and a lot of it relates to business. We have depreciation, how it's calculated. We also have the out-of-state income that corporations have and how they're going to be taxed in Illinois. And what we saw was benefits were given by the federal government with the tax bill that are now being taken away by the state. So what does that do in the big picture? Number one, it increases taxes on businesses. We're talking about $200 million that's going to be increased. But number two, it makes Illinois less attractive to business. So if you're a larger business, you're thinking, okay, why do I continue to put up with this in Illinois? Maybe Texas is attractive. Maybe Tennessee is attractive. Places that aren't going to continue to add to the tax burden and the other burdens of regulation that we put on as a state.
Maybe I'll show you my text from my cousins in Texas. Come to Texas, it's a land of milk and honey. Leave. Why do you put up with this?
Right.
I've had 3 people say it to me since Wednesday of last week. If I'd known what I know now, I would have left 10 years ago when I could afford to leave. All right, so death by 1,000 cuts in taxes in Illinois. Airbnb, vaping, betting, telecom taxes, pension, transit, and I'm forgetting some, I know.
Well, energy, because that's going to, we talk about taxes, and then we also have the cost of living aspect of taxes as a part of that, but cost of living is going up because energy rates are through the roof, and this is a self-inflicted wound. We've moved away from affordable, reliable energy to a theory about energy that hasn't yet been proven to be. It's one thing to say we're going to attempt this, but you don't, I think you and I have talked about this before. You don't tear down the house you live in before you've built the house you want to move into.
Yes.
And that's what
Terry Bryant wrote an article published in one of the newspapers this past weekend talking about shortages in electricity projected in Illinois by 2030.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem quite so far away now that we're at 2026. Yeah. But we've already had it happen in some of the summer months. Reduce power, right. Companies reduce power. We'll give you money to stop production.
Right.
And companies don't want to stop production. It's not how you make money. So, you talked about this earlier, and this is the one, because I want to tell you a short story. So it's a Thursday. I know you just finished work at about 4:30 in the morning. I'm up reading the news and about the tax increases that have been voted in the fall veto session. And I start saying, well, when I get on the air tomorrow morning, I'm going, no, you're not, you're retired. About 10 minutes after that, think, maybe I'm not going to retire after all, because what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? Well, this is what I have to do about it, and I want to do something. But there was one that had pushed me to the edge prior to that, and that was the moving of road funds to the tune of, I made a call to Senator he's Senate candidate and current House Republican Paul Jacobs. 830, 860, 900 million, and 950 million are all figures that I found how much was taken from the road fund, not from just downstate, but from everywhere outside of Cook and the Collar counties, everywhere else down, everybody else, we're taking your money.
Yeah.
We need it for Chicago. And that one really pushed me to the edge.
Well, it pushed a lot of people to the edge, even some organizations, some unions that support Democrats generally and downstate said, we can't support this.
My Lord, I just thought about this. If they hadn't been for the unions, they would have taken it all, because they got to keep their union members happy in the southern third of the state.
Let's hope they wouldn't have done that, but their past practice indicates that they likely would have.
How much did they take?
Well,
You have-
I'd like to walk through some of it because
Please.
it's the bigger picture. So we started out last year with Chicago. This is all Chicago area transit that we're talking about for the 90% of
buses and railroads?
buses and railroads. Yes. So we have projected an $800 million deficit. That was what was projected.
1 year?
It was the cliff that was going to hit this year.
Okay.
So January 1 of this year, we're supposed to have an $800 million fiscal cliff that we were going to have to address last year. Well, as the year progresses, this is in the spring session, as the year progresses, that number starts to go down. They realize their revenues, not just taxes, but other revenues are strong enough that deficit wasn't what they thought it was going to be. And then they start projecting, well, actually the cliff isn't going to hit till later in 2026, later this year. So it became less of an emergency, less dire. So ultimately, when we came to the veto session, it was about went from $800 million to $200 million fiscal cliff, which was really...
That was the number I remembered, because I'm going, why are you taking 800? You only need...
And they have a $200 million fiscal cliff, and they solved it with over $2 billion in revenues, in new taxes, in new fares, in tolls, and then in taking money from the road fund. So we talk about the road fund. There are a few different ways we get money into the road fund. You have the motor fuel tax. That was the gas tax people talk about that was raised in 2019.
And it's built in to raise on its own future.
Yes,
so they don't
every
have to
year,
vote on it.
inflation from here on out. Then you also have the sales tax on the tax.
Yes.
And on the,
Unconstitutional, and we still do it. Taxing taxes.
and then we have the interest on that pot of money as it sits in the account. So what occurred was they didn't touch the actual gas tax. That money is still the 55-45 downstate to Chicago split. They took two other pots of money. One is the sales tax on gasoline, not the gas tax itself, but the sales tax on gasoline. That was about $800 million. I don't have the down to the decimal, but we're talking about $800 million. So instead of that going 55-45, it's now 55 downstate, 45 Chicago. It's now 85 Chicago, 15 downstate.
I thought that the formula had been changed to 85-15.
That's it. Has been changed. Instead of being 55-45, it's now 85-15, 85 Chicago, 15
For the rest of the state.
And the other thing is that 15% has got to be spent on transit, not on roads. So you're actually taking all the money out on that pot that would have been for downstate for roads and moving only 15% of it to transit. Now, we've got to see how that's going to work for our transit organizations here in the rest of the state.
That is stunningly disproportionate.
Oh, it is. And that's why people
It's
were up in arms.
self-evident.
Yeah.
And still we did it.
Yeah.
And the legislators and Republicans, of course, in super minority.
And one other point on this before we move on, and on that interest, what's important to note there, that interest is going to be used. So, okay, it's interest, it's going to be used, but that encourages them not to spend that bigger pot of money. Because if that pot of money stays big, then there's more interest to be spent on transit. So if you spend down the bigger pot, then there's less interest. So
Don't worry, they will.
Yeah.
They'll do it. Nobody can stand by and look at a pile of that money and not go, I think I want some of that. I said that, and you know what I find? There's another aspect to this that I find interesting. There's a lockbox.
Yes.
So this allows them to do this because they are using it on transit. So intellectually it's correct, but it's an original intent. And the people who voted for this, including some Republicans, we just saw one of the biggest shell games in Illinois history with $800 million.
that's right.
Is it dishonest to call that a shell game?
No, it's not dishonest. That's what has happened. So talk about the roads and bridges, the lockbox. That was sold as money for roads and bridges is going to be in the lockbox.
Stays in roads and bridges. Can't raid that fund anymore because I just said when people see a big pack of money and a big stack of money in Springfield, they go, I think we'll just take a little.
But the language of the actual amendment said transportation.
So
that is large enough to drive a train.
and this is the way it is now. 85-55, Chicago keeps it. And now Chicago has always been a donator to the entire state when it comes to taxes. Is that what this is about?
The breakdown of the numbers, and people argue about them, and there's been studies by SIU showing how the money is collected by the state from what areas and where it's sent. Actually, if SIU's study is correct, it's the suburbs that are sending more to the state than they're receiving. Chicago is basically breaking even.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, another item that happened in 2025 is we created 2 classes of citizens in the state of Illinois. Illegal aliens who aren't citizens, but do have rights not to be arrested in courthouses, hospitals, daycare centers, colleges. We have, by executive order, is how this was done?
No, this was actually House Bill 1312. And it also set up an ability, civil causes of action, that anyone, not just federal law enforcement, not even just local and state law enforcement, anyone who violates the constitutional rights of another person as it relates to immigration is subject to suit. Now, the intent is to go after federal immigration officers, but it's broad enough that it applies to all law enforcement officers, even all people.
In face of the Safety Act, that's adding insult to injury.
Yes. And what's likely to happen, the Trump administration's actually already sued on the Southern District to say
December 22nd, I think the lawsuit was filed.
Basically, the argument is this is unconstitutional. We have a supremacy clause which says the federal government and its laws are supreme over the state government and its laws. You cannot make federal law enforcement subject to lawsuits in your jurisdiction for exercising their rights under federal law. We'll see how that plays out. But if it is found unconstitutional as it relates to federal officers, what the state has done, that has only made local and state law enforcement officers subject to suit. We, again, as you said, have added insult to injury.
Yeah, because I've talked to police officers, says, we've got a suspicious van. We've got 12 men in the back at 1 o'clock in the morning traveling down 57, and we're not allowed to ask who you are.
Right, because of our sanctuary state status, and we have expanded that. We have essentially, with this...
I can be arrested. Can I be arrested at the courthouse?
Oh, yes, yeah.
I think that's the most ironic.
Yeah. And
breaking
actually,
the law, but can't be arrested at the courthouse.
And it is...
To me, I find that the double standard for that. Can I be arrested at the hospital?
Yes.
Can I be arrested at a college?
Yes.
Can I be arrested at a daycare center?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to check.
And adding to this immunity from arrest is a 1,000-foot buffer zone around the courthouse.
Yes, saw that.
1,000 feet going to and from. That's a city block in most places.
Right. So I tell you what, this is some of the stuff that we want to talk about. 2025. As we wrap up this segment, 2025, what of the items that you and I have talked about did we not talk about that you think we should know?
Well, I've alluded to it a little bit because energy, I think, is going to play a vital role. And I want to just highlight a couple of things.
I've got friends that are giving me death threats because my bill this month was only $297.
Right.
They're envious, to say the least.
Well,
how much was yours?
It was a little bit more than that, but not much.
Yeah. Well, you got a couple of kids, so I figured you've done well.
Well, the thing is, I have municipal power. So if you live in a city that has a contract, or you're with a co-op that has a contract, you haven't seen the spike that direct Ameren customers
that kilowatt hour was the difference between municipal and right off the grid was like a penny per kilowatt hour, I think. Really small.
So this energy bill that we passed is going to have $7 billion of incentives for battery storage, and that is going to be paid by the ratepayers. So that's going to result in rates being increased.
You want to see what a feller believes in, see where he spends his money.
Yeah.
$30 million for small business, $300 million for welcoming centers. We're going to help small business. We should. They help us pay the bills. They collect taxes.
Right.
$30 million. Maybe 40 if you press it with a couple. $300 million for welcoming centers. Disproportionate spending. To me, that's one of the ones that, once again, kind of aggravated me.
And when we talk about this money that's being spent and the rates that are going to go up, all of it goes into a big, talking about the funding, the taxes come in, big pot of money, it results in higher cost of living because taxes have to go up, rates have to go up.
Yes.
The regulations are there that cause businesses to have to raise prices. All of this scheme that unfortunately the General Assembly and the governor is pushing is just causing cost of living to go through the roof for the average Illinoisan.
I've talked to people, and I've talked to people today. If I wasn't home, I would have already moved. If Mom wasn't living here, I would have already left. Grandma wasn't living here and Granddad would have already left. I talked to a business owner, 40 years in Marion, and I asked her, if If you knew today, 10 years ago, what you know today, what would you do? Move? I would have already moved.
Yeah.
Do you hear that very often in your district?
Well, that is...
Because your district is susceptible to that, because what they do is they go to the river and go,
Yeah.
right over there, grandma's right over here, it's not that far away.
Not far away. In fact, I can live over there and work over here if I had to.
Seen that.
Yes. That's why I ran for office. And when I started running about 9 years ago, was I saw people my age and younger taking their families, picking up, moving right across. I live in Metropolis, moving right across from Metropolis into Paducah, Kentucky.
Yeah.
They felt that life was better, cost of living was cheaper, taxes were cheaper, and looking at it, it's unsustainable. We cannot continue to lose population, particularly in our rural areas of Southern Illinois, and enjoy the quality of life that we've had up to this point.
Patrick Windhorst, State Representative, 117th District, former State's Attorney, Massachusetts County, which is going to come in handy in probably some of our other conversations, but this is just segment one, old business and new business. Of course, we just finished old business 2025. This is part number 2, 2026. Man, you got to go to work like next week, January 13th?
Well, that's the Senate. We go in the week after.
20th?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw a couple of dates. I'm really glad you shared that with me. So you'll be back the 20th. How many legislative actions have been requested? How many bills have been submitted? Have you seen a number yet? I looked this morning. I couldn't find a number.
No, we are kind of in the period now where the requests are into LRB, the Legislative Research Group. Yeah. And then we're waiting for those bills to come back to file them. But it'll get
deadline May 13th?
For all action through the House and Senate, yes. But we actually have a deadline coming up here in the middle of January to get bills filed.
Okay. Oh, I got you.
To be considered in the normal course. But as you know...
And that way, this is me being facetious.
Sure.
If you want to just punch me, you can do this.
No, I wouldn't do that.
So what they'll do is they'll create a law, they'll file it, and it'll have a name, and then later they'll cut that, and it'll get the name, but it'll be totally different words in it later. So you think you're voting on save the puppies, and it's actually kill the puppies.
Yeah,
we do that here in Illinois.
It's maddening. It's beyond frustrating.
So I tried to create a priority list for Illinois in 2026 in view of the legislative filter. So you've got the spring session. Okay, well, everything that's impacted will be impacted by the election, the presence of the election. This session's going to affect everything that goes on.
Yeah, that's the big picture as we look at this year. We have a governor who's up for re-election, who's got plans beyond this election for a national run, it appears. We've got...
He told me no.
Well,
I asked him.
I would be...
We went on the phone not long ago, and I asked him, and he said no. He said, I have my hands full with the state of Illinois right now.
And
just for intellectual honesty, I want to, JB, thank you for calling, and yes.
So we'll see how that plays out after this year if he wins re-election, but definitely he's going to be on the ballot for re-election this year. And we have the entirety of the House, a third of the Senate, which is up for election or re-election.
Right.
So that issue of the election is going to basically dictate a lot of what occurs in the spring.
And that attachment to the national level. I call it, I kind of categorize everything and give it a title and then put the story underneath it. Trump versus JBP. That's a headline for me. And I think that election on the national level will also be reflected on the local level, which of course is Illinois. Elections are always challenging.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a big year. One of the other items, and I'm curious about your thoughts. Have you been watching any of Turn Chicago Red videos from Chicago and Mayor Brandon Johnson?
I have seen some of the stuff they put out online, yes. It's about Turn Chicago Red, yes.
Yikes. They are ticked off.
They are, and they are expressing what I believe a lot of people are starting to feel, that a lot of the citizens, we talked about this in another segment, a lot of the citizens there are feeling like they're being ignored at the expense of people who aren't citizens of the country.
A common denominator in almost all their presentations.
Exactly.
And then it boils down to, I can't afford to stay here. You guys, this property tax you just levied on me, I cannot afford this. I can't. And here's the thing, people say that, but you've got a lot of time in the courtroom and you hear the voice stressors, you watch them, they aren't kidding. They're afraid, they're scared.
Because people are literally being taxed out of their homes. If you can't pay your property taxes, your property is sold at a tax sale, and ultimately, in a few years, you'll be out of your house.
In a city where the mayor doesn't pay his sewer and water taxes.
And you can see why people would be frustrated and why the mayor has an approval rating of basically close friends and family, I think.
Yeah, it's like 3.
Yeah, right, right.
And they polled people, and cockroaches actually polled higher.
That should tell you something.
People are, by the way, kidding. I'm not kidding. You can look it up on the internet. All right, so Chicago Red will have an impact because it will, in a metaphorically speaking, in the baseball sense, brush them back off the plate a little bit, because they're seeing their own foundational voters say, I can't do this anymore, guys. I cannot do this anymore. Why'd you do this to me? And why'd you do this to me for somebody that, come on now, please, right? Now, but there's a whole lot of other stuff. The former mayor of Heron, Vic Ritter, always used to say to me, he says, what is my job? I keep the water on, I want to keep the lights on, and I want the police coming to your house if you need them in the ambulance. We can just do that. We've succeeded. Now that was that view. And look, we are here in that situation right now. Caro, in your district, we just need, how much is it to fix that crushed sewer pipe they have down there? It's 15, 20, 30,000?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Now, Caro is no longer in my district, but right. I represented him for quite a few years, yes.
And somewhere in your district, you have somewhere in the neighborhood of 153 water districts.
Between myself and Paul Jacobs in the 118th, we have, so what would be the Senate 59th, that'd be right.
And people are saying, what's this about water? Well, these areas, these small municipalities have lost so much population, they've contracted, they don't have enough sometimes to even get a board.
Yeah.
But they're expect to pay for a water district that is outsized and underpopulated. And I have a feeling that's going to be one of the downstate items, because I'm watching these water systems collapse, especially in the smaller ones where the people are out there every day patching, fixing. And in Caro's case, it's not a lot of money, surprisingly little money. Something that can be done in this year? Is there a plan to deal with that?
Well, Representative Paul Jacobs in the 118th district has taken the lead on trying to get all the water districts to come together, meet, and to see if there's a way all of us, all 153, can work on a plan that would allow us to have outsized voice.
That's
basically.
Brilliant. I think that's a great idea.
It's a great idea.
We conglomerate them.
Yes.
And then we've reached our population minimums to apply for grant monies, right?
Right.
I love that. What are we going to call it?
Well, that's a good question. We have to leave it somewhat up to the water districts how they want to handle it. Don't want to necessarily force it on them, but we want to hear from them to see if what Paul has put forward, what I think is a good idea, meets with what they're thinking their needs are.
Yeah, I'm going to actually put up with another story from me.
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah.
When I was very young, a young man working nights on rock radio, I had a roommate. His name was Steve Lambert, and plumber. And it's like Thanksgiving or Christmas morning, one or the other. And he's putting on his coveralls. He's getting ready to head off. It's like Christmas Eve, I think. Yeah. And I said, what's going on? He says, well, they got a leak down in Mitchellsville. And I'm going to go down there. We got the service contract, right? And so he's climbing down into this 6-foot hole, water, mud, Christmas Eve, bitter cold. I said, why are you doing this? He says, when people get up in the morning, they have expectations, and one of them is they can turn that faucet on and take a bath and cook breakfast.
That's right.
And he did it in such a passionate way, right? In a dedicated way. I'm getting up, I'm going to go climb down in a muddy hole, Merry Christmas. That I've never, ever forgotten that. The importance of what that guy in a hole does for everybody else.
It's one of those things that we don't think about until it doesn't work.
Yeah.
We expect to turn the faucet on, the water will be there. When you flip the light switch, the lights will be there. And to Mr. Lambert, that shows a servant's heart, that he put the needs of others above his own comfort for the evening. Yeah. Most people think, well, it's Christmas Eve, I'm going to enjoy myself, right. And that can wait till the 26th.
But he knew what they expected.
Oh, yeah.
And he wanted to make sure that family, we had it in our house, we were one, it's nice, and we lived in a trailer, we were young and trying to make our money go as far as possible, but I've never forgotten that. So when I was looking at 2026, here's something else that surprised me. They're already projecting a $3 billion deficit fiscal year 26.
And so what that means, we talk about the election being kind of the overarching view that's going to dictate everything. It means we've got a $3 billion deficit. And we've got a supermajority in the General Assembly and a governor that really doesn't want to cut anything out of the government because somebody is benefiting in one way or another from what's being expended out of the government. So how do you fill that gap? And what we've seen over the last several years is efforts to raise taxes and fees in a less than across the board manner. So what I mean is you raise a gambling tax, you raise the vape tax, you raise alcohol taxes, whatever tax might help fill that hole. One of the things they did was deal with how businesses are taxed. They did this last year. How businesses are taxed, how they can take depreciation or treat out-of-state income for tax purposes.
The death by 1,000 cuts, a lot of little things.
Then they add up, and they add up to the cost of doing business in the state being one of the highest in the nation, and cause a business climate to be viewed as not favorable by most people who are in business.
Yeah.
And then ultimately that all comes down to the individual taxpayer, the individual citizen having to pay those costs.
Is that why the Bears want to move?
Well,
I know it's not in your district,
no,
but I heard you, and I'd seen so many
Yes.
videos and going, Bears moving to Gary, Indiana. Oh, no, wait a second. Nobody moves to Gary, Indiana. And how bad is it where you are when you go, Gary looks like a step up?
that should tell you something. There should be a wake-up call. Because when you, in full disclosure, I'm a Bears fan. So I'm not in my district, but I am a Bears fan.
Right.
And watch a lot of videos of other Bears fans and how they responded to that announcement. And a lot of them said, well, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I hate they'd leave Illinois, but from a business standpoint, it makes sense. Taxes are lower. They would get a favorable incentive package.
They could afford to spend more on players.
Right. But what I think ultimately is it's a leverage move to try to get the governor and the General Assembly to move on something.
Right.
And what I think it comes down to, not that we want to go too much down this road with the Bears, but I think it comes down to one of the big issues that everybody faces, and that's property taxes. They want assurances if they move to Arlington Heights that they're not going to have outrageous property taxes.
Yeah. We all do.
That's right.
We all want that.
Yeah. And what we have seen in other, not necessarily for the Bears, but for other businesses, there are efforts made to give those incentives on property taxes that the average person doesn't get to enjoy.
Yes.
And then we ultimately face that
Once
burden.
again, creating two classes.
Yeah.
Can't get arrested at the courthouse, the college, at the daycare center, and they don't have to pay property taxes, but you do. Mm-hmm. That is bad business, and also un-American.
Yeah. Well, we all should be equal.
Yeah. So, after this whole thing with Somali daycare centers and people saying it's baked into the system, fraud is everywhere. Do you think we have fraud in Illinois? And the reason why I ask this is in light of this $3 billion projected deficit for fiscal year 2026. I don't think you can fraud your way out of $3 billion. And if we can, oh Lord.
We have to take a serious look at it. The reason I say that, of course, you see what happened in Minnesota. We have a very similar theory of government. The governor of Minnesota is a progressive. Our governors are progressive. They tend to move to the left and just allow the money to flow. But we look at what happened during COVID with the PPP loans, where we had individuals in state government who were illegally obtaining those loans.
Some of those have been prosecuted too.
Correct. So there's a reason to take a broader look. It's not as if Illinois government is a stranger to corruption. We are known as one of the most corrupt states in the nation. We've had 4 governors prosecuted, Speaker of the House, currently in prison. So the thing is digging into it to find where it is. And when you talk about billions of dollars,
let me throw you this. Where is it? Let me throw this at you. If we've got too much money, if we don't know if any is being misspent, then you have too much money to track. There's too much. It's just something I saw that kind of shook me up. $3 billion, though, man, that's a lot of money to find this year. We're going to need money, and then we're going to need some more. And we've seen a lot of ideas. So many ideas that we've looked at and talked about today that we've displaced the conversation about pensions.
It's still there.
20% of the general revenue now goes to pensions in the state of Illinois. 20 cents of every dollar. Wow.
And then there is the issue that is going to come up again this year of Tier 2 pensions.
Yes.
And if there is any quote-unquote
We created that whole mess.
That 20% number is going to shoot up, and the numbers that relates to local governments will shoot up, which will impact property tax.
Property taxes back in again.
So as I've told people, as it relates to Tier 2, I'm open to hearing ideas, but I can't support anything that would result in a tax increase. And I have not yet to see an idea that wouldn't result in a tax increase.
Just say no.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine, Republican campaign strategist, and he says, Republicans we've got to be more than the party of no. That resonate with you?
It does, and I think I'll just talk for the House Republican Caucus. We've done that in this way. We have put forward working groups. I sit on one of them dealing with public safety, where we say, okay, we don't like the Safety Act. We don't like the direction of the state with public safety. Here are our ideas.
Sheriff's Association says Safety Act needs to be rewritten.
Yes, and it does. And we see there's an example almost daily of some flaw in the Safety Act that could easily be addressed. In fact, privately we'll hear from members on the other side. They acknowledge there are problems. But as we've talked about before, we have this overarching election and / federal versus state issue where the president says, I don't like the fact you eliminated cash bail. Well, any change we make on that is going to be an admission. Well, guess what? The governor would be somewhat admitting the president was right if he signs off on a change. So those political issues are impacting our ability to improve public safety.
I did read the article by Terry Bryant, Farmers and Energy. And farmers and tariffs and energy and the price of, and you and I have seen so many power plants close in downstate Illinois. One of our big points was we could attract business because we had cheap power.
Right.
It was one of our biggest attractions for business out. That's gone. Now we're in the summer, we worry about whether we're going to be able to keep the air conditioner on or whether there'll be rolling brownouts.
Right.
We'll be looking at a law in this coming session, nuclear reactors, I think, or
Yes.
one's already been passed.
Yep.
Many nukes from like a nuclear submarine. I think the only company that was making them now has gone out of business. Is that the way?
Well, we've got a few things that came up with the energy bill that from the fall that will lead into things this year. One of them is we had eliminated the ban on small modular reactors, the mini nukes.
Right.
This bill from last year also eliminated the nuke ban in its entirety. But we're talking about a decade.
Yeah, it takes 10 years.
Yes,
because the state stands in your way and the federal government every step of the way on getting approval.
The other thing that the bill did, the Illinois Commerce Commission now is going to have more authority than it's had in the past over two things. One is rates. Used to be the General Assembly weighed in directly on that. Now we have delegated that authority to the ICC, which from a ratepayer standpoint is problematic because that means a politically unaccountable group will be able to raise rates.
We don't vote for them, right.
The other thing, though, talking about political accountability that to keep an eye on, the ICC looks like we'll have the authority to say to power plants that are set to retire, you can stay online beyond the CEJA moratorium.
So they would be able to say, the EPA, Illinois EPA, stand down. We're going to give you special dispensation.
Correct. That's the way it's being interpreted at the moment.
Interesting. Good.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you shared that with us. That's one little bit of hope there. But still, they're not accountable in any way, voting or anything like that. They're appointed.
Correct. But if we have the moratorium that exists in the law now, where we're looking at 2035, 2040, 2045 closure dates, and the ICC could say, no, actually we'll extend those. That's something that has to really occur now.
Yes.
Because
it's happening.
They're looking in the future
Yes.
more than just a year or two.
I'm glad you said that early. Gun storage laws. I think there was one just signed by the governor.
Yes.
And the way I don't know whether the stuff that I read was maybe before or after. I know it's coming or more
took
is
effect
coming.
January 1st.
All right, so it started January 1? Okay.
So we have two things that we have a gun safe storage bill, basically that if you have a minor child or a felon or I believe the term is protected person in your home, you have to have the gun locked and unloaded.
Locked and unloaded?
Yes. The issue is, like minor children is easy, but how do you know if a quote unquote protected person, someone who is a felon or someone who has maybe mental health issues in your home?
And then you have only a short limited time that if it's been stolen, you're responsible for reporting it.
You got 48 hours essentially, and
what
if you have two of those, you lose your FOID card. So there will be lawsuits challenging. In fact, there may have already been one filed challenging the constitutionality of that, particularly as it relates to defending yourself in your home. If you have to have your firearm locked up, it will impact your ability to defend yourself in your home. And so that we could see some court action. I mean, as you and I have talked about firearm legislation probably as long as I've been in the General Assembly.
Right.
And we get it takes a long time rather for these cases to work their way through the court system. The assault weapons.
Too long.
Way too long. The so-called assault weapons ban, semi-auto ban basically, is
But this
now
year,
working its way up to the Supreme Court.
We're going to know this year, I think.
We'll have a better idea at this time next year,
Right.
for sure.
I'm a little more optimistic, apparently. It's interesting. I read another article this weekend blaming cities for imposing a grocery store tax. And I thought, that is really blatantly intellectually dishonest that cities and municipalities have now decided to add a grocery store tax. It was there before.
Yes, and so it's something that I guess whoever reported on it didn't either do the back research or didn't present it correctly.
You saw the list of
towns. Yes, I mean, it was
453
length of my arm,
right?
Yeah. So what happened? We had a grocery tax that was state imposed. State imposed a grocery tax,
1%.
1%, collected the money and just returned it to the municipalities or counties. So we've had a bill that said, okay, well, let me back up. Many of us on our side, the Republican side, wanted to eliminate the grocery tax. We pushed for it,
Should have never been there.
Right.
We should have never taxed food.
Yeah, the best we could get out of the other side was, okay, we'll eliminate the grocery tax, but we'll give the municipals the ability to add it if they want, because they're the only ones benefiting.
But only after there was a fight.
Correct.
You had to fight for that.
Oh, yes. So that passed. So we eliminated this, what we would call the state mandated grocery tax, and now it's up to each city if they want it or not.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of cities, they needed that revenue for their day-to-day operations.
I think it might have been around, gosh, I hope I'm not wrong. It makes me hesitate to say, but I think for Marion, it's $3 billion, something like that.
It's a large amount. I would say with a lot of people come to Marion to shop, so that wouldn't be surprising.
But taxing food. There was another issue too, and people saying with this energy, you want to draw people in. Well, then, Illinois has data centers, AI data centers. We do have data centers, but we don't have any AI data centers. That's what I was told by Governor Pritzker when he called me at home. We were talking and power, energy bills, things like that. He says, did you know we don't have any AI data centers in Illinois? I said, no, sir, I sure didn't. I quite frankly took for granted that we did.
Well, the data centers have presented a portion of our problem we're seeing with energy. If you ask the left, the problem with energy is all data center driven.
Okay.
It's true that they take such a drain on our energy supply. It takes a lot of energy to operate them. But we can't ignore the fact that we've moved away from reliable energy by going with what has been called the Green New Deal or the Green New Scam, depending on who you're talking to. Right. And that has resulted in energy shortages, which have caused rates to go up. But when we look back a decade ago, when some of these plans started to take shape, it was not foreseen the amount of data centers or the amount of energy would be needed for these data centers. So that has added to the issues we're seeing with energy, which, to me means we should
call the ICC and tell them, have you seen the new AI data center building?
Yes. Let's keep the energy that we have on the grid and actually expand those things that we know are reliable and have provided affordable energy.
My example is how much power and our priorities. Let's open 3 Mile Island so we can open a data center. 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant, the poster child for destruction of nuclear power plants. Right. Suddenly, everybody embraces because it's opening a data center as opposed to warming an 82-year-old woman and her dog.
Right.
That's one of those things, once again, kind of aggravates me. But you look and you see, oh no, 3 Mile Island, we'll bring it back online. It's good. Over in Chernobyl, they're going, how's that? Is the place looking good? It shakes me up. So 2025 is behind us, 2026 in front of us. The legislative session begins soon. Do you have any legislation that you want to talk about that you're proposing that will affect our lives? Because if you've got something on property taxes, I'd love to hear that.
Well, we do have a bill that our caucus put forward on property taxes. The issue with addressing property taxes is so many different units of government locally rely on it.
So, you mean like cut up for this goes to the schools, this goes to the police, this goes to city water, this goes, when I ran for county board in Williamson County, I was always surprised by the amount of that and the percentage that is just payroll.
Right, and then you get the pension percentage too, which is is large. So the state doesn't benefit from property taxes. It's essentially for locals or community colleges.
Yeah, but the state's taking that money and say we're not giving it to the city anymore. It's up to you to fund that.
Right.
They
Cut
that foundation out.
So when we talk about reforming property tax system, you say, okay, we're going to make this change, but that has a negative impact on cities, so the municipal league's opposed. Okay, we'll make this change, but it impacts schools, so the schools come out against it. It's hard to find a solution that's going to keep the locals at least somewhat whole and also reduce property taxes.
Right.
There was I feel like a unique solution or an idea that was put forward that needs more hearing from the General Assembly, and that is, we talked about pensions and the state payment on pensions. Actually, the amount of money we're paying is increasing, but as a percentage of state budget, it is not staying about that 20% level. There's a bill that was proposed by my predecessor as floor leader, Mark Batnick, and now is being run by Dan Ugasti, who's in leadership. And it says, keep that percentage locked in on pensions. And whenever that percentage falls below, the savings get sent back to the schools, and they have to reduce their levies by the amount of money they receive. Because as we know, schools are the largest percentage of our property tax bill.
Thoughtful and responsive,
yes,
is the way I interpret that bill.
So it gives the schools the money that they've had. That money has already been collected by the state, so it works out as a tax cut in the long run.
I think Illinois doesn't have any choice. I don't know about the rest of Illinois, but down state Illinois, we're going to have to start consolidating schools.
Well, my view on that is that needs to be a local decision, and by that I mean the local voters to decide. I don't like the idea of the state coming in and saying, you must consolidate.
I agree with that.
But
because
I think
they can't get it right, but we can.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah.
Because there are some schools now that are already, we can't get the certified students, teachers.
Yes.
And they're putting their students, their seniors, and they're shipping them to another school.
Or having Zoom or whatever.
Graduating class of 8 this year. A graduating class of 12.
Yeah.
That's, they're neat, and they get shortchanged in the process. So before we wrap up today, what else do you want to talk about? 2026. Let's look forward. You got anything to be optimistic about?
Well, I'm optimistic locally. I feel like there's a lot of energy in Southern Illinois. I see a lot of communities working together that, at least in my lifetime, I don't remember seeing. There's organizations such as SI Now, which I know you've talked to Deb Barnett and Nick Holdinghausen.
I like that. I like that.
They're working to promote our area throughout the country. I think even into Canada and other places, that I believe was going to bear fruit that's positive. My goal is, let's get the state governance in line, which will make their job a lot easier, and all working together toward positive improvements for Southern Illinois.
Can we keep the people of Illinois out of the crossfire between J.B. Pritzker and Donald Trump?
That's going to be the challenge, because we have good congressional representation, Congressman Voss, Congressman LaHood, Congresswoman Miller, who have the ear of the president. And so when the governor says what he says about the president, we have people to say, look, Mr. President, we know you don't like what the governor said, but some of these actions can have ramifications for the citizens of Illinois, who 45% of which voted for you.
Yeah.
So, hopefully the politics of this, it doesn't seem likely given the fact this is an election year and we're going into a presidential election year immediately following, but the cooler heads prevail.
Don't you just some days think you ought to wear a helmet?
Yes, definitely.
Just a helmet.
Yeah, maybe see if I can borrow a tank.
Right, something like that. That's right. We're speaking today with Patrick Windhorst. I want to thank him for joining us at the Veterans Airport in Williamson County. It's a beautiful place, and we've been using it for a set. He's a 117th District State Representative and also a Republican floor leader. This is a 2-section interview. If you're just watching this one, there's one for 25 and one for 26 with Patrick Windhorst. Did I tell you thank you?
Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
It's different, isn't it?
It's great. I like it.
To do it person by person. So he's drove in to help us do this today. My guest today is Diane Daugherty. She is the president of the board of directors of St. Francis No-Kill Shelter and an excellent coach, and my guest and my friend from.
Why, thank you. You better believe it, Tom. We go way back,
We
and
do.
I'm so happy for you in this new adventure.
Thank you.
Didn't last in retirement very long, nor did I. I think I work harder now than I did.
Dave England said this would happen. You'll work harder in retirement. I haven't reached that point yet, and I may not. Did you watch the first episode?
I did, and very proud of you, and we're very proud to be your second guest.
I was looking at it, I was going, the production crew put a Crypt Keeper filter on my face. Couldn't they at least use kitties or puppies?
Well, I thought you were a little pale, so I'm smart. I never go on video without a cute puppy, a cute kitten. So voila, here's Windstar.
Yeah, Windstar. We should mention our other guest today. Windstar is our other guest. I know it's the only person who's not disturbed by my appearance on the video. It's my dog. She doesn't care.
She loves you. And that's the wonderful thing about animals.
Yep.
They don't hold any grudges. You can have a terrible day. You walk in the door and you see them and you know, how can you not look at Windstar and not smile?
You know, I when I was younger, I didn't have these big dark rings under my eyes, but I also had a much more cavalier approach to animals. I was raised on the farm, so the rules were good. The animals had to be fed first. We raised birds and game birds and things like that. Dogs and the birds got to get fed first, the animals got fed first, but they were still kind of marginalized. They were tools. And as I've grown older, probably one of the things that I enjoy most about the changes in my life is the way I view my relationship with the animals.
I think all of society has evolved.
Do you think we have? Because that was my next question. Do you think it's not just me and age?
No,
it's
I think
maturity.
I think because, I grew up a long time ago and, outside dogs were just a thing. Outside cats were a thing. People didn't have dogs in their, animals in their home like they do now.
We got a fresh bale of hay for the winter.
Right, exactly. And as we have gotten softer, we have made our animals softer. They're not hardy like they, I had a big collie growing up. Well, he would come in the house for a little bit and he would die. It was just too hot for him. So, but we've evolved and gotten much softer as a society, and we've made our domesticated animals soft where they need to be taken better care of.
It's interesting because if you look at this, that's a process that's been going on from somewhere between 45 and 60 years. 1,000 years, I should mention. 45 to 60,000 years of one author referred to it as mutual domestication.
Yes.
But see, here's the other thing, and this guy, and I think he might have been a Russian, I'm not sure, and I was reading this, and so long ago, he says, you're judged by how you treat the least among you. Now, when I first used that phrase on the air, I was talking to a political science professor, and he says, you got to stop reading that Russian literature. You've been reading Dostoevsky or something, haven't you? Well, I wasn't really talking about prisoners. I was talking about the least among us are the animals the only animal that has truly given up nature to join man is the dog.
Yes.
I'm so glad you agreed with me. I was worried.
No, I totally agree. They are totally dependent upon us.
Yeah, and so what they've given up, we as a species have a collective responsibility to the dog.
I agree.
And the cat.
I agree. Cats, I have a cat. I love cats. I am more of a dog person than a cat person, to be honest. But, feral cats can survive. They have those instincts as long as you don't take those instincts away from them by providing too much extra. Once if they're a kitten and you start feeding them, you've got to continue to feed them because they don't have the mouser instinct anymore. But feral cats can survive. We have too many of them. We've got to trap and release. That's another whole hour program. But they can survive. Dogs cannot.
Interspecies responsibility is what I wrote the heading for that. I think that's a good heading. It's a little clean for my things because it's not just whether they're fed, whether they're housed properly. Our emotional connection to them is the thing. I mean, I got a good dog a few years back, and I've had a lot of dogs, but that was the dog. And the reason you're here today is because of that dog.
Oh.
I have responsibility to him. So here's the thing. I was kind of cavalier in my youth about this, right? And dogs and animals, not anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I saw you post on Facebook that St. Francis No-Kill Shelter, we're with Diane Daugherty, she is the president of the board of directors of St. Francis No-Kill Shelter. I have a mortgage. And when I saw you, because I figure you got two, you had one, and I'll tell you, and I talk about this quite a bit among my friends, the people that I love most in the world to say, get out me way, I'll do it. And you walked up and you signed off on that mortgage for the St. Francis No-Kill Shelter 11 years ago.
I did. I did.
Certain amount of trepidation, I would assume.
I have always had faith because I didn't make that much money First Southern, they were kind of crazy to loan us. It was almost $500,000.
Was it?
And they did it on my signature. So God bless First Southern, but we were doing too much good. We had the little white house on the property where we are now. It was falling apart. We either had to build a new building or we had to dissolve. And we were making too big a difference in the unwanted animal population. We were the first no-kill shelter in Southern Illinois. We were adopting, we were saving. We had to keep going. And so it was a matter of, okay, we've got to go. We've got to find a bank that'll loan us the money. We've got to, get a contractor, an architect. We dove in head first and absolutely no regrets, especially now that we don't have a mortgage.
You don't have a mortgage, but there's probably another number. How many dogs and cats and people you helped in that time period?
Well, I looked that up, and I'm only going to give you the stats from the new building. And we moved in our new building in 2015.
So 10 years.
So it's right, yeah.
Good sample.
A good sample. It is one animal shy of 10,000.
Wow.
That we have.
That's higher than I thought,
Yes,
Diane.
10,000.
That's a great number.
10,000
If you
dogs
take the mortgage
and
and divided it by 10,000, you got another interesting number.
I'm not that smart.
How many? Even I on the fly here, but I keep thinking, how to qualify this for every dog that comes through the door because you've gotten so much support. Integrity, right? That brings that support. The social media's had a huge impact for you. But first, let's go back because we said paid off the mortgage, because here's the thing. There are two people that stepped up to help you and St. Francis all at the same time. And no drum. But two people in Florida right now
Yes.
who I'm hoping are going to watch this video so we can
they
say
will.
thank you
Yes.
to you very much.
You better believe it. Marie Ballard and Dr. Charlotte West. Dr. West hired me in 1986 to work for her at SIU. And, I was the women's golf coach.
I remember when you got hired.
It was a lifetime ago. Wonderful job, wonderful 25-year career. Charlotte is a very conservative financial wizard. I mean, she was buying AI stock before we even knew what AI was.
Yeah.
So she was very nervous when it was my name that went on that mortgage signature 11 years ago. And she thought I was crazy. She knew what I made as a golf coach, and she thought First Southern was crazy to loan us that kind of money. And every couple months, I talked to them all the time. Every couple months, she'd just say, what's your mortgage now? What's your mortgage now? And we always paid a little more on our principal, so we got it down.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, she tried to do this and she did do it as a surprise to me. She was actually talking to our director, Jessica Picard, and our board about what it would cost to get the building, our main building, named after me.
Oh.
So it's quite an honor. I mean, I've been very fortunate to have honors in my life, and this is the biggest honor of my whole life. It will always be St. Francis, but the actual building is going to be the Diane Daugherty Center Rescue. We haven't
It makes me happy.
totally decided about
We
that.
got room for everybody, right?
So-
That's a good deal. All right, so if this is in bad taste, I hope you tell me we've been friends a long time, okay? So I'm reading the published reports, and I don't see a number. So here's two numbers I want to ask you about, if it's okay to ask. You had the mortgage for 11 years. My mortgage is 30. Was yours 30?
25.
25.
Yes.
So you got 9 years here, right?
Yes.
How much did our two friends in Florida contribute to pay off the mortgage at St. Francis No-Kill Shelter?
Well, I wrote the check for $225,000, and that saved us over $200,000 in interest that we would have owed had we continued with
How
the
much
mortgage.
again?
$225,000.
Wow.
But it saved us over $200,000 in interest.
I know. I look at my mortgage and I'm going, that's the interest? Yikes. Yeah.
So, but the wonderful thing, we try to do things at St. Francis that will be, way after I'm gone, way after any of us are here, that St. Francis will be there. St. Francis will be saving animals, be adopting, rescuing. So we have a formula. We use the Southern Illinois University formula of naming a building. We sold rooms when we built the building. We sell kennel space. We do everything to try to make ends
Coming
meet.
soon, the St. Francis lottery ticket.
You better believe it. I'm not above it. And if it will keep our doors open,
if it
you
helps
better believe
Windstar,
it.
I'm all about it.
Yes.
By the way, you're not getting out of here with that dog. I don't know
Deal.
how she'll feel about it, but I don't think you're going to get out of here. And I'll have zero grief home when I burn her too, by the way.
But we did a formula, and so they
formula. Here's another
Yes.
formula I want to ask you about,
Okay.
because this is the thing. And you look at this at face value and say, I wrote this check for $250,000. Okay, it's the second order of effect. Whenever I looked at the financial record for St. Francis and look about how busy you are paying, and because you're spending about $600,000 to $700,000 a year.
Yes.
That
Yes.
would startle people. There's
Yes.
different numbers there depending on what year. But in 2023, your budget was between $600,000 and $750,000. All right, so they pay $250,000, knock that off. The second order of effect, when you don't have the mortgage to pay and all that goes along, you still have to pay the insurance. That's going to allow you a level of flexibility to, one, ensure the future, which
Yes.
is you just talked about SIU and how we can ensure that's going to happen long after we're gone. But on day-to-day operations, I would think this has a profound effect because it freed up money. That second order effect, I think, is fascinating. It's not just paying off the mortgage. It allows us to do so many other things.
It allows us to do things that we have been putting off. Our kennels outside are rusty. They're somewhat dangerous when a little dog starts chewing.
Right.
We are going to be able to do the improvements now. We're going to catch up with things that, because I hate the Band-Aid effect. But when you have a budget and expenses like we have, our water bill is $500 a month. Our electric bill is $2,000. Our gas bill is $2,000. That's a month.
Yeah.
And that's not even our payroll.
Wow.
Which is $5,000 to $6,000 a week. So our expenses are great. The mortgage release from that is just a huge sigh of relief that we don't have that hanging over our head.
Yeah.
And we can start putting that money back into St. Francis to make it better, to make it safer, to do things that we have been limping along with.
Because Jackson County doesn't have an animal shelter.
We have an animal shelter now.
Do we?
It is that the old Humane Society.
Right.
They
They were closed.
They closed. Then the Jackson County Board purchased that, and it is open, and they are in
Calling
business.
you for notes.
Yes, and we have been more than.
I'll bet you have.
Oh yes,
You're
because
good with the
we
people.
need
More.
till we do better as a society of spaying and neutering.
Yeah.
We need animal control facilities.
Right.
And we were talking about the laws, and in January 1st, 2026, Illinois passes a law that no dog shelter can euthanize for space.
Did not know that.
Wonderful
Thank
law.
you for that.
Wonderful law.
There's another federal task force being retooled to focus on animal cruelty using multiple federal agencies.
But that brings me back to there's a law that was passed in 21 that if you're a 2-time convicted animal abuser, you cannot adopt an animal. Well, that makes sense to me. We don't get any kind of list from anybody that says this person is a 2-time convicted animal abuser. So it's a law, but there's no enforcement.
Yeah.
They passed the law. It's a feel-good law is what I call it.
Right.
Because they pass a law effective
Got no teeth.
January 1st. No teeth. Because the shelter can euthanize for aggression, for attitude, for health. So, I could look at this one and say, okay, Windstar's got some pit in him. He's going to be aggressive. I'm going to put him down.
Yeah. They've got a bad reputation
Yes.
they don't deserve.
Yes,
And it's because of people.
exactly.
You know,
And we still have, and even though puppy mills are supposedly illegal, we still have them. We have 10 in Jackson County.
bet on it.
We have
10
251 in Illinois.
10 we know of.
Yes, 10 that we know of.
Bet on it.
Because the law's there. I can have 4 females in my home and I can breed them. And that's I'm I don't have to be a licensed breeder because I only have 4. If I had 5, I'd have to get a license. Well, 4 females, they can have 3 litters a year. I can produce 120 dogs out of my home and not be licensed and not be called a puppy mill.
And somebody right there is doing it right now, putting the puppies on social media and go, isn't she cute?
Yes.
And it'll be $500. Thank
yes.
you. Right.
And I'm not going to charge you. There will be a rehoming fee.
Right, a rehoming fee.
Yes.
I've done that a lot lately.
Yes.
So Marie Ballard and Charlotte West, Dr. Charlotte West down in
Yes.
Florida, I want to
Yes.
thank you for your help because your efforts made a huge impact here in Southern Illinois. And a needed impact. Like I said, I thought Jackson County Humane Shelter was closed. I mean, you and I talked about that when it happened. Going, what are we going to do? I think Heron just finished building a new one. And this, once again, ties back into what you and I were talking earlier, a maturity of us.
Yes.
Right, when it comes to animals. So now that you've got this, the mortgage thing, sleep better, I hope.
Oh, my gosh. The stress, right after... Well, we hadn't paid the mortgage off, but the Sunday that it was 70 degrees and it was going to be 19 that night, the heat in our pole barn where our big dogs sleep had gone out. So there's a Sunday afternoon. Several of us are out there. We're putting in a new thermostat. We finally decide we have to call. We have to get an expert because if it's something serious, we have to do something. We have 40 dogs
and
here.
And it's going to be 19 tonight in the pole barn.
Yes. So with probably a lot of stress I would have had I had to make that call and say, help, we need you.
Right.
I know it's going to be double time, but we need you. I was able to make that call and say, we need you, come on out, and I'm not going to lose sleep over this tonight.
And that's one. There'll be another after that,
Yes.
another after that, another
Yes.
after that for a very long time to come. So thank you so much for Ballard and West.
You better believe I have less wrinkles because of Marie and Charlotte right now.
You do anything about the eyes, give me a call. Now, here's another thing. What's next for you? Because you talked about some of the items. Is Dr. Kay Crease still with you?
She's not. She's retired from us.
I thought she retired.
Yes.
I love her.
Yes.
She didn't smile a lot. But if I was going to be in a house and it was on fire, I'd want her to be in there with me because I know we're all going to get out alive. If she had to carry us out by our feet, she'd have. See, there's different kind of people. When you meet her, you're going, "You okay?" And you get to know her, and she says, "She's focused. She's got a job to do. She goes out and does that." I like her.
I agree. But we've really had, vets are in short supply.
Yes.
Our whole medical system.
Overwhelmed.
People, yes, doctors, veterinarians.
Dr. Truth,
Very,
who helped
yes.
me with, he helped me with a project this past year where we bought stretchers and medical kits for all canines that
I
registered
contributed.
with us. I know you did.
Yes.
And the same thing they all tell me is we're just overwhelmed every day. Every day we're looking for more vets.
So we have a couple of part-time that come in and help us. And Dr. From Solid Rock has been awesome. He comes in at least once a week.
Good.
So all of our animals are spayed and neutered.
Great.
I hate that we have had to suspend our low-income spay and neuter offering right now. But what we were able to charge and what we spent on that, we lost money. And until we can get veterinarians where they're looking for jobs at a nonprofit, not making $200,000 a year with a signing bonus and benefits,
Competition, yeah.
we're having to make do just to take care of our animals.
Yeah.
Which I hate, but we'll get it back.
Well, maybe somebody will see this and say, "Hey, I got an idea, or I can help."
Yes.
That's kind of my hope that that we can.
Crazy, in our vet schools, we don't have a lot of vet schools.
Not around here. I would think St. Louis would be the closest one. Maybe Evansville, Paducah, maybe.
No, Murray State's trying to get one.
Yeah.
And Champaign and Mizzou. Vet schools are very, very, very few and far between. And they always say it's harder to get in vet school than it is medical school.
See it now, the Ballard West Daugherty Veterinarian School at SIU. And see it now.
See, that would be awesome. Wow, that would be awesome. But another thing that, I found out when we were looking for a vet is that PETA does a lot of wonderful things, but they also do things that really don't make any sense to me. A veterinarian that graduates from a veterinary school today doesn't operate on a live animal till they actually go to a vet, a private vet, or somewhere where they're under supervision.
Internship?
Yes, an internship. That's their first opportunity to operate on a live animal. Some vet schools were doing so many unnecessary surgeries with bad outcomes that, there's no reason for this dog to not be spayed.
Right.
But to have unnecessary surgeries to teach, I agree. We don't need to do that.
Yeah.
But now they've made it where a vet coming out of school, it might take them 2 hours to do a live spay. And an experienced vet, it's going to take 15, 20 minutes.
That's my experience. I had Rosalie spayed not
Yes.
long after we got her. I got her 8 weeks old. It's my first female dog. And so there's a learning curve. You know what's interesting? And I looked this up. Average health care and taking care and supplying food for an animal goes anywhere from $700 to $3,500 a year annually, depending on breed, medical needs, emergencies. I thought $300 was in this. I read the breakout. $300 on toys sounded a little low.
That's what I'm calculating in my mind, and I'm thinking, I would really skew those figures because what I spend on my animals is absurd. But, and speaking of spending, and I do have to tell you, and I think you do know, we became part of the Purina shelter program last year. And so some quick calculation this week, we have saved over $100,000 because Purina gives us food.
Good.
Purina gives us dog food, puppy food, canned food, dry food.
Did they vote?
Cat
That was the
food.
one they voted for you? Or they just applied for?
I actually got to know the CEO of Purina through golf.
Good.
And
They
she
say all the best
put us-
deals are made on
You
the
better
golf course.
believe it. And that has been a godsend because you see what it takes to operate
Yes.
and what we take in.
I was stunned by that, I'll be honest with you.
We don't operate in the black month to month. We operate because of the end of the year giving. We operate when people give us their qualified dividends they don't want to pay taxes on, when they don't want to pay capital gains and they give us stock. We make it at the end of the year to keep our doors open.
So that would explain, I was looking over your financial records, your relationship with, I think it was Fidelity Investment Group.
Yes. And
Okay,
locally,
I wondered about that. When I was
locally
looking over
we
your
use,
fiscals.
Liberty Wealth. But that has been a godsend for us. If you get to the age that you have to take qualified dividends, you've got to pay taxes on that.
Yeah.
Or you can donate. And we don't mean to be greedy. I mean, donate to St. Francis. We're here in the Veterans Airport. I've been on many honor flights. Donate to the honor flight. Donate to a food pantry. But instead of taking that money and then begrudgingly paying taxes on that, donate it to charities, and it's a win-win-win.
The community support you experience is really incredible. So I like the fact that you've got the responsibility of taking off when it comes to this. But there's a subtext, and we kind of talked about this. WinStar is just one animal, out of thousands that are here in Southern Illinois looking for homes. So if you can adopt and give a great home, it's a great thing. Why is it you think you do this? Because I've given this a lot of thought, especially after my good dog had a profound effect on me. Made me happy. And I said, wait a second, it might be a little bit more than that. I think the word you're looking for is joy, because there is a difference. And that joyful feeling, can't get anywhere else.
We see the worst in people of how they can treat animals. But then we put out on social media, hey, we need help with this vet bill. This dog needs special food. By the next day, the response is unbelievable. So we see the worst, then we turn around and we see the best. So that is what keeps all of us in animal rescue going. And just to save, what would have happened to this little guy? And when Jackson County Animal Control wasn't open, we would get, a dog tied to our door daily.
I've seen a bag of dogs thrown out of the road over here on Old Route 13, not far from the Veterans Airport where we're filming today. Couldn't catch the car.
Luckily, we would be in prison right now doing this interview, because if the two of us together, that wouldn't have been a good outcome for that car.
In certain terms, I will whip a boy's ass for hurting a dog.
Yes.
And don't need a jury. So
yes.
I'm just
we have always agreed on that, and that is that is something that I will never understand. I will never understand how anybody could abuse this or or make him a bait dog. Fighting rings are still prevalent around here.
I know. I've seen some of the wounds.
Yes, we get bait dogs in, and they'll take the dog and they'll cut the teeth off so they can't do any damage to the other dog. So they're defenseless, and they're just scars everywhere.
So there's the ability for their ability to help us be happy and joyful. The inverse of that is when somebody mistreats them, you and I go to prison.
Yeah. And I've told you I'll come visit you, and you've told me you'll come visit me, because that I have no patience, I have no toleration for anybody that abuses a helpless child or animal.
You saw that quote to AOC saying, I think people care more for their dogs than they do for people. Well, first off, it's not an either or situation.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, I'm not going to argue about it, because they've been our friends and have come in from the wild to be with us and next to us for 60,000 years. We have made them what they are, and to some extent, although I'm just discovering the impact and inherent connection we have to them. But you circumnavigated the happy joy question quite a bit.
Well, doing what I do and be able to see everything that...
How many dogs you got in the house?
I'm down to 2.
Are you? And a cat?
Yeah, and a cat. And I'm usually 3 dogs and 2 cats, but I'm getting to the point in my life where after I lose what I have, I'm going to start fostering our older dogs.
Oh, good idea.
We'll get a dog
because
in
who wants to go to the bathroom by themselves?
I
mean, really.
And I hate it when we get an older dog in that's not going to live the rest of their life in a home.
Yes.
And it's usually no fault of their own. Their owner is passed away. Their owner has gone to a facility.
Yep.
Circumstances not within that dog or that cat's. They have no idea what's happened to them.
No, none idea. I watched this. It was interesting because it was a page, and it says you have to understand this had a huge impact on me, and it just happened 3 or 4 weeks ago. Dogs have no agency. You can get up today and go walk to the bathroom if you want to. Dog can't. Dog needs to go to the bathroom. He has to wait on you. He's out of water.
Isn't that the truth?
He can't go. That you are everything on I only do this emotionally because my dog hates everybody but me. That's my girl. She's one dog person. But they have no agency. And I started thinking more and more about that. Man, I really started thinking more about when she just wants to go out to smell for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because that's important.
You're their whole world.
What's dog currency to you? I've talked to Bahesha Doan from Disabled Veteran, right? Dog training, canine services, extreme canine. And I've been trying to learn how to talk dog. Lip licking, eye contact. She's clearly, my dog's not going to learn. I want to talk to her, but she's not going to learn English. So I've been trying to learn how to talk dog. Have you ever tried to learn to talk dog? It's not just woofing. There's all kinds of things and stretches and recognizing what they are.
I learned, I'm a reader about, like sleeping positions where
yes.
There's
like 10 of them.
They're the little spoon, that means something. If they sleep down by your feet, that means something.
Yeah.
My dogs control me. They, I am there for their, there's a joke that, cats have housekeepers. Well, I'm my dog and my cat's housekeeper.
Yeah.
I mean, they want out, I won't even make them use the doggy door. I'll get up and let them out.
Recreational director, go to the bathroom, you're in charge of that. You're
yes.
my doctor, how much health care, where they're psychologists and their hours. Yeah, that exchange once again.
And I spend more on their food than I do my own food.
I talked to a woman on the other night. She was going to Kroger to buy chicken for her dogs.
Oh, yeah.
And I think one or two of the dogs that she has in her care right now, elderly dogs from people who passed away and did not want those. And the owner says, when I die, please take my dog. I don't want anything to happen to my dog.
And people need to think about that. They need to think that what is going to happen to my animal when I die? And, hopefully somebody in your family, but, as we know, dogs and cats are expensive.
Yep.
So, leave a stipend to somebody so there's
good.
Perpetual care.
Thank you for that. It never occurred to me. Take
yes.
my dog. I also left you some money to take care
yes.
of my dog. See,
yes.
That's really thoughtful. That's
yes.
something that what else have you learned? Before I let you go, what have you learned that you think I need to know and other people need to know about pet ownership?
Well, the health benefits, everything, we could go from top to bottom why everybody needs to have an animal.
That whole thing where the dog, it takes your blood pressure down?
You better believe it.
I'm not so sure about that. I checked mine on out the door. I walked out the door. Mine was 200 over 150. So
Well, that's because you were all excited coming here to see me.
that's got to be it. But yeah, I mean, the health benefit for me.
And it makes you get up in the morning. There's some days that I don't want to take a
Sometimes
walk.
I'm at 3 a.m.
I'll do that. I'll get up with them, but it's okay. They're my family.
Right.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Nope.
And, I'll walk 2 or 3 times during the day where I probably wouldn't if I wasn't having to go take a walk with my dog. So I know I'm healthier. I know I'm happier. I know that kids that grow up with animals, they have a sense of responsibility. They have less allergies.
Remember my first dog still?
Refresh me.
My first dog, I was only toddler. I was crawling, and all I can remember about the dog, it was brown and black, and its teeth go in all different directions on the bottom row because we were at the same level looking at. I remember it. It was 1960.
See, and that's a wonderful memory.
Probably one of the first ones. Yeah.
See, that's a wonderful. I grew up with animals, and it's just, I think everybody needs to have a pet in their home.
Yeah. But today, No Kill Shelter. Diane Daugherty is joining us this morning. This has been a really great interview. I wanted to do something from the heart whenever I started doing these back, and I'm really glad you brought Windstar. And do you have a pet carrier, or can I just put him in the back of the truck? Diane joining us this morning, but our biggest thing is our thank you for the incredible gift for St. Francis No Kill Shelter that came from 2 of our friends in Florida, Marie Ballard and Charlotte West. I want to thank you. Maybe you may recognize her name on it. I think she's got her name on it.
A stadium, yeah, and forever going to be instrumental in women's athletics at SIU forever.
Yeah, and left an impact. And
Yes.
I think you'll be known just as well for not only golf, but for what you've done for animals in Southern Illinois.
No, thank you.
10,000 animals have been through the care.
And those are local. We rescue, we save locally.
Yeah.
And we ask for support locally and we rescue locally.
All right. So look over in the camera and tell them what they can do to help you.
We have no mortgage, which is awesome, but we still have a lot of bills. So don't think that we have it made in the shade from here on out. We don't. We still need you. We still need you to come adopt. We still need you to drop off newspapers, bleach, and just thank you for a wonderful 2025 and your continued support from here on out. And thank you, Tom.
Diane Daugherty, St. Francis No Kill Shelter. Thank you for taking care of my friends.
Thank you.
We'll see you next episode.